G'day, Stephen Carey from OffTheGridAndOz.com. This video is a little bit about finance. This whole off the grid thing has an aspect to it for the new people, probably especially. Now obviously if you've got a checkbook and you don't have to look at finance for any part of your off-grid existence or new life, well, this probably isn't, appropriate or relevant. But for people who are actually looking for, a foot in the door. How's this day? Whoa, check that sun out. Yeah, it's been raining here early this morning, would you believe it? Been freezing cold, now the damn sun's out. Yeah, go figure. Bloody weather's pickled. Anyone got an answer for me as to why the weather's like this, please feel free to let me know. But yeah, look, this finance thing, it's one of these issues that encompass quite a few different areas, right? Now if you're new and you've only got a few bucks and you're looking to buy a property, well, probably the property is the first step you need to make. Couple of points. I'm going to try and keep this relatively brief, although I could probably make a long book about this. The first point really which comes to mind is that most people who go to buy a bare block of land will find the banks or the traditional institutions are a little bit strange when it comes to financing just a block of land that is not improved, because the bastards that actually do the finance in the orthodox institutions, they want security. They want your jocks. They want your grandchildren. They actually want your grandchildren. They want contracts on just about everything known to man, or security based on everything known to man, before they will lend you dime one on any bare property. Now in that regard, there's a couple of things, and this is a general video, right? No, don't jump on me if you found something outside the square, which is where I'm heading right at this second. If you found something outside the square, that's good for you. But the average person who goes to the bank is going to run into a couple of issues. A couple of issues is security. Generally loans against bare blocks of land are a little bit difficult to get, not impossible, but difficult. The financial institutions, mostly the banks especially, will tend to want the plans for a build that you're going to put on the property. They want some future that they can get their stinking claws into. Yeah, as they all do. They want their claws dug very deep into you. Now, my first bit of advice is, the banks have a rule, generally, over about 20 acres, they get bitter and twisted. They class properties over a certain size. Some banks have different property sizes, but on average it's about the odd 20 acres. Now, when you look at... anyone got this cold that's kicking around? Yeah, I digress. You want to try talking in one of these things endlessly without getting a bit of a dry throat. It's a bit hard. But yeah, look, the banks tend to want to look at properties from their criteria. And one of their criteria with most of them is over 20 acres. They class them as not a domestic sort of an operation. They class them as more a rural operation. Once you get into that, you jump into a whole new set of categories. Under 20 acres, they tend to look at them as a private purchase. And then they will ask questions like, what are you going to do with this land and stuff like that. Second piece of advice is, don't ever, if you don't have to, mention to the banks the word off the grid. Alright? Some are becoming more compliant or understanding of that, but most get very strange, and you can tell the bank manager gets all twiddly at the knees and starts telling you, an off the grid property isn't quite, within the realms of our capacity to lend against. So do yourself a favour, avoid the use of the word off the grid. We found on the first off the grid property we built about 9 years ago, we had two titles next to each other. This is an example. We had two titles next to each other. One was on 12 acres, one was on about 25. They wouldn't lend against the entire property because in combination it was about 35 acres. They flat just put us through the ringer. How's this sun? I'm being fried alive here. About 2 hours ago I was freezing me bum off. But yeah, anyway, the banks got all bitter and twisted over the 35 acre total, so what we had to do was actually reapply for the loan with the 20 acre property, the 12 acre property, and they agreed because it was under their 20 acre minimum criteria or maximum criteria. So firstly, we made the mistake of mentioning the word off grid, and secondly, we were trying to obtain a property that was jumping out of domestic into somewhat rural. Not that I would class 35 acres as a rural property. You could grow about 3 pieces of corn on that, so to speak, generally. I'm joking, alright, but you get the drift. The banks have criteria. Don't mention off the grid. Try to buy a property that's probably 20 acres or under. If you're struggling, alright, if you've got the big checkbook, this is not relevant to you. But if you're new, do yourself a favour and stick within those boundaries and don't mention the off the grid. Try to look for something that's around that 20 acre mark, or even better, check with your finance institution of your choice and see what their lending criteria covers. Now, the second part of this is a lot of people will say, oh, I got knocked back because I'm buying over 20 acres, or I haven't got the infrastructure on the property, so it's only a bare block of land. They get bitter and twisted about that and put you through the ringer. Well, my second piece of advice is, as far as finance goes, you can take slightly dearer interest rates through different finance institutions and get your property going. You might get a 5-year term or a 10-year term on somewhat of a loan that resembles a personal loan. Now that may, that flies in the face of, oh, let's go debt free. Well, kumbaya, not everyone can go debt free. So if you're new, rather than sit there and go, oh, no one will lend to me, oh, bugger me dead, life's bloody a bitch, the system's a bitch, and hello, we've made videos on that. The system is a bitch. You have to probably stop and rather than get depressed, change your approach. Alright? You may have been back, and this is one other mistake people make. They run around like a chook with their head cut off and go to a dozen institutions, and they get what is commonly called knocked back. Those knockbacks actually go on your record, would you believe? If you've been refused finance, that actually goes on your record. So you really got to think clearly. If you're very new to this, don't just jump in madly. Don't be the crazy bastard that jumps off the end of the boat thinking they can strangle the shark with their bare hands, alright? That's not the case. Don't jump off the boat. Don't get depressed. Stop and think before you move, especially if you haven't moved yet, and think about your approach. Cover a couple of points that I've mentioned just a few seconds ago, which is don't mention off the grid. Buy within the realms of the lending institution's criteria. That means you have to make a general inquiry without giving your name and the colour of your jocks and how many grandchildren you have to sell to them. Right? Don't tell them that yet. Make general inquiries first. Then perhaps, if you find that what you want to do is outside the lending criteria, you can turn around and perhaps contemplate taking a different style of loan to get you started. Knowing, and this is only for the people who have a strong drive and a strong urge to complete their plan. If you know that within 5 years or so, and you can get a 5-year loan, that you can actually add infrastructure to this block, which will bring the damn thing more into the bank's liking, you can refinance. Now I know this again, the purists that love the old no finance thing, yeah, alright, you just stuck your finger down your throat. I'm sorry about that. But no, for the new people, you're 25, 28, 30, you've got a couple of kids, you want to buy your block of land, you may have to deal with this in a 2-stage process. It may cost you a few dollars, but like I've said in many videos, what is your life worth? If you have to spend a few dollars on interest and a few dollars on charges to get this thing going today, and then refinance it in 5 years when you've put your hard yakka in, done the hard yards, thrown some infrastructure in, perhaps built a transportable, or your pole construction, or you might have bought a kit and put a kit up. Once you've done that, what you've done is taken that property further into the realms of the understanding of the finance institutions. And then, listen to me, then they are far easier to get along with. And your short-term loan that may have cost you a few bucks in interest has then taken on a new look to the banks. And when the banks look at it the next time around, you will get the cheaper loan. You'll be able to refinance at the cheaper rate. And then if it's a 5-year short-term deal that you take with some mongrel that wants to charge you more interest, well, all I can say is if you've done the hard yards and put your infrastructure up, you've paid a few bucks in interest, but you've had those 5 years rather than sitting in your fucking... Oh, I said it. Oh, shit. You've done... Sorry about that. You've done those 5 years on the higher interest rate, and in those 5 years, instead of sitting on the couch watching frickin' TV, pondering your new life, you've been out there for those 5 years while you're paying a few more bucks interest, and you have built or started to build your new life. That means you haven't wasted those years. Those years have a value attached to them, and in this case it may be because you paid a few more bucks in interest before you refinance. So the point of this video is financing off the grid can be a difficult exercise. It can be something that needs to be tackled in a slightly unorthodox manner, and there are many ways. Most people think that they just have to go put their good threads on, go down, make an appointment with the local bank manager. I'm being blinded here. How's that? That's unbelievable. Yeah, most people think they've just got to put their good threads on, go, but make an appointment with the bank manager, and when the bank manager goes, you're not good enough, bugger off. Well, they don't actually say that. They walk out of that bank and they go, well, that's it, we're screwed. You're not screwed. You're not screwed. You just need to stop and gather your forces, as they say, and figure out the next form of approach. All right, I'm going to leave that at this. This will be the first one on finance. I'm going to think about this a little bit so that I can put it together in a little bit more extensive sort of a way, or a clearer way. But basically you have to avoid a couple of things. You're new, don't mention off-grid. You're new, don't try to look for a 100-acre property with nothing on it. Unless you've got a big checkbook, and probably 50-60% deposit, they're just going to scoff at you. So crawl before you walk. Look for a property that's within the realms of the institutions that you deal with or are working with. Check that out before you go stick your head in the noose and get an application up. Don't take the application before you actually find out the criteria that this institution will actually work within. Because this off-the-grid stuff, it is becoming more common. I say that loosely. You still will get a couple of eyes, eyebrows raised. But look before you leap. Think about what you're doing. Don't be dejected by the fact that the first place you walk into says, no, sorry, John, you and Betty have to go and live in a fucking... I said it again. A freaking tent. I'm not going to apologise. The institutions are the first one you walk into may tell you to go just live in your tent on the side of the road. Well, you think to yourself, and don't tell the bank manager that he can, stick a sharp object up his bum and spin on it. That's not a good plan. But think to yourself that maybe you need to take a different approach. I hate seeing people waste, 5 or 10 years planning this stuff and balking because they think that the system won't deal with them. The system's a funny thing, We all hate its guts, but you can manipulate it if you stop and think about it long enough. If you stop and do some research, and I mean ring these places up anonymously, find out their criteria, and this is the thing that people forget. If you actually do reverse engineer this whole process, this whole thinking, reverse engineer it. Instead of going to the institution and telling them what you want to do, you look at what the institution will allow you to do. And then what you go and do is you look for the property that will fit within the stinking institution's criteria. And then when you approach them, you take some pre-thought, well-spoken words into them that they will understand. Morning, Mr. Bank Manager. Yes, we're going to put a Jennings home on it. You can tell them whatever you want. In business, they call it a business plan. And I know you're not probably looking for a business plan. But in business, the attrition rate is huge. Banks lend money to people with business ideas based on what is called a business plan, and a little bit of capital up front. But the bottom line is they lend because they have a business plan put before them. What you have to do when looking for an off-grid property is plan your off-grid property purchase approach. Just like a business. Check out the institution first. Keep your mouth shut. Stay guarded. Work your business plan or your off-grid property purchase to suit the institution you have looked at and asked the questions to. And then when you walk in there, you might get a slightly different attitude from them. So it's cheers from Stephen Carey from OffTheGridNoz.com. A little one on finance. This is a big topic, and I could go on about it forever, but you know what it's like. It's getting late in the afternoon. The sun's actually gone in now, and I've got other things to do. But I wanted to put this up because I see all too many posts about people struggling with finance. So OffTheGridNoz.com, we're only giving advice. This is not fixed in concrete. This is based on our experience and my experience for 30 something years. I built my first home at 23 with a bit of finance. I've built several more since then. Built a couple off-grid properties, and I've helped people build their own properties up. This has been an endless thing for me. I do unfortunately have to deal with institutions quite often. Now, this is not perfect advice. It's a general guide, all right? Think about the way you approach your buy. Don't be dejected by standard thinking that you might run into. Perhaps stop and ask a few questions of other people like ourselves and see how you go. I believe seriously, unless you are standing there with 20 cents in your pocket, living on the curbside with not 1 cent to your name and not a roof over your head and not a postal address, unless you're in that bracket, and I'm very, very not sorry for you, but I feel for you. I have some empathy and some sympathy for you. But if you are not in that bracket and you do have a roof over your head, you have some means of employment, there is a way to approach this off-grid finance that perhaps may not be as difficult as what some people are led to believe. Alright, so cheers from Stephen Carey from OffTheGridNoz.com. This one's on finance. Hope your day was good. Hope you think it positive. Hope your plans are all coming to fruition. Don't be dejected. Stay positive. Alright, life's good. Life's good. You just need to know how to manipulate it perhaps, or operate within this stinking system that necessarily doesn't treat us off-gridders on an equal footing with the guy with a BMW and a big checkbook, alright? Yeah, no. Well, as it was put to me, that was my rich man complex. I haven't got a rich man complex. Alright, cheers from me. And on that note, I gotta go deal with my chores. And all you guys, we'll catch you on the next one. I'm out.